Hello, everybody. Yay, seeing some people join right now. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a while since we've had a webinar, and I'm extremely excited about, let me pull up the presentation right here and get to my slideshow. Oops. Share my screen. As people are coming in, I want you to, number one, just tell us where you're coming in from and kind of what was most intriguing about this topic. Of course, we hear so much about Tier 1 instruction, and one of the curiosities I'd love to know is, what are the things you're doing in your district to support Tier 1 instruction as people are joining. So thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. I'm Jeanette Simonson, and coming to you with this idea that well-being obviously is a tremendous support for Tier 1 instruction. We know here at Thrively, our tagline is every child has a genius and they deserve to thrive. And as we think about thriving, we think about well-being, obviously they're all tied together. So thank you for being here with us and for allowing us a time to work together. So I see computer science, yay, that's where I come from, the computer science world. Welcome to Nancy from San Diego. Thanks for being with us today. Tell us a little bit, tell me, usually I'm hosting somebody. Tell me a little bit about what you brought you here and what you're hoping to learn. And maybe another question might be just thinking about, how do you know if a student is ready to learn? I think this has been a topic of conversation as we go into school districts and we help support from this vantage point. We know that students have to be ready. We know that students, their brain science, all that's coming out about that, we need to create those conditions. So welcome, Michelle. Thank you for being here from San Diego as well. And Monica, thank you for being here from Dallas, Fort Worth. Excellent. California, lots of people. Oh, cool. You're in a grad program, Regina. Excellent. So welcome. My name, like I said, is Jeanette Simonson. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, or if people are still doing Twitter, X, what are we calling it now these days? Would love to hear from you. We do post a lot of things from Thrively on those websites as well. But as you're thinking, and maybe this is more of a rhetorical question that you're considering, is how do you know if a student's ready to learn as you're getting ready? And so one question that's coming in from our audience is, how do we know when students have high anxiety, and are they too shy to speak or to share their personal issues? That's absolutely a question that we at Thrively, when we built this program with Turnaround for Children, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Exactly. We have to give them lots of different ways. And how do they know? Is it anxiety? Is it just fear? These are big feelings that we're talking about with students. And so how do they even identify that? I'm going to get to that question as we get to our further discussions here. So great, somebody from Las Vegas, school counselor just started using Thrively. I'd like to know more. Excellent. So we'll get to some of those questions. That's good feedback for me. Want to ground ourselves in, again, sort of when I built this out, just thinking about the classroom environment. We'll talk a little bit about preparing students to learn and how the classroom environment can create that for them. We need to also identify and define what is well-being. We hear that tossed out since COVID. What does it mean to be feeling and functioning well? And that's, of course, the terms that we're using with Thrively and Turnaround for Children. But what impact can this have on our Tier 1 instruction, which we've heard research says Tier 1 instruction, we need to make sure 80% is living in that Tier 1 instruction. And what is the framework and some of the practices that we can really ground ourselves in? So what do we know? We know students are 30 times more engaged when their school is committed to building on their strengths, and a teacher makes them excited for the future. This has been around since 2013. As you can see, Gallup did a survey. We know that even teachers who leave the profession say, why are they leaving? Well, behaviors and engagement. So engagement seems to be this kind of thread that we look at throughout all of the different content areas and throughout every portion at school. How do we get kids engaged? Well, we need to create these conditions for learning, right? And again, conditions could mean everything from, do you change the lighting and the seating to, do you come in and high five them? We see all sorts of things from Edutopia coming in terms of what can you do to welcome them in the door. But I think to your question that came in the Q&A is, how do we know what happened at home from the last time we saw them? How do we know if they're not dealing with some big emotions like anxiety? And so, yes, and to the other question that's in there, teachers, right? If teachers are overwhelmed, how are you supposed to come into an environment where you're feeling very stressed out and create these conditions for learning? So we'll talk a little bit about students first, and then I'm going to flip it and we'll talk a little bit about teachers. So if you're a counselor, if you're sitting on an ILT team, or you're an administrator that's joining us, this is recorded. So send it to your administrator as well. We definitely need to make sure we create these conditions for teaching too, but that's not unfortunately what we're talking about today in this 30-minute period, but I do want to address that as we get into this. I think, and if I were to take a poll right now, I would guess that most of you could say one or two things that you're really good at. Okay, we're not going to do a poll, but if you feel like sharing with the audience, what are you really good at? What do you love to do? What wakes you up in the morning and gets you excited? It hopefully is your job. You're going in to do what? I'm going in to make an impact on kids, or I'm going in to see my colleagues. Also, I'm sure there's days where you're not at work and you're excited because you're going to go on a walk. You're going to go for a hike. I live here in Denver, so going hiking or going into the mountains. These are conditions. You create these conditions, and we need to find out from every one of you and every one of our students, what are their strengths? What do they love to do? And we're talking about well-being today. So we're going to talk about these positive situations that we can create so that everybody feels like I'm sitting up, I'm ready to learn, and I'm also engaging my brain. And we know that obviously brain is a key to learning, right? We need to get those oxytocin levels going. We need to make sure that we're, dopamine and everything else. But a couple of you are sharing working out. Yes, getting the endorphins going from working out. They like to get stuff for the classroom that could be fun for the children. Fun. Oh my gosh, I love it. Joy, fun, that creates engagement. Laughter. There's a reason we go to comedy shows. There's a reason that, the laughter really increases, and we know that goes back to brain science. So what can you do right now? And I want to give just a pause. Based on what you know ignites your passions and ignites your dopamine levels and ignites all of your endorphins, what can you do tomorrow to do this for students? And in fact, do it for yourselves too. Get out of your seats. What are some things that you can do within the constraints that the curriculum and the Tier 1 instruction asks you to do? So yeah, Michelle, helping your kids feel successful. Who doesn't like to feel successful, right? Personal story, my son, he says he doesn't like going to school, and that breaks my heart. Why doesn't he like to go to school? Because he feels like the structures and the rules and the regulations are keeping him from having freedoms. Maybe you ask your students, what are some things that we can earn so that you feel like you have choice and voice in our environment? So really some thoughtful things to create that environment. We at Thrively, of course, one of our main things is focusing on well-being. How can we be catalysts to help you have resources, data, and some ideas around this? Okay, so I want to just pause for a second. This is the title that comes out of the dictionary, but what's your reason? What's your definition for well-being? And I want you to think about, here's a basic one, the state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy. But maybe you put your own words on that. And maybe you ask the students, what does it feel like when your well-being is really strong? You feel like, what are you? I know, Dr. Hackney, thank you for sharing a sense of belonging, right? Finding joy and fulfillment in day-to-day events, challenges, and successes. So even if there's challenges, you're still finding that joy and that fulfillment. You feel accepted and not like an outsider. Absolutely. Including hands-on activities, so they feel even more involved. Absolutely. Hands-on. So many of our learners need that movement, and make it tangible, right? So I think SEL plays a really cool role in this, as you've mentioned here. But how does SEL then help, move the needle on literacy and math and everything else that you're being measured on? Feeling safe and accepted, right? And so I think some of the questions, I love how you guys are actually leading us right to this feeling and functioning idea. A healthy dose of stress and stress management. Hey, doesn't it feel good when you're put in a stressful situation and you're like, hey, guess what? I got through that with emotional regulation. I got through it without losing my, my sense of self, and congratulating yourself that you're able to support yourself through stressful situations. And I just want to take a pause. I want you all to think of a moment when you're really proud of yourself. And I think that's, goes back to another webinar we did where we're having gratitude. But you could do this as a connector for kids. When was a time that you were proud of yourself? When was a time that your parents or your teacher or a friend was proud of you? And what does that feel like? How do we get back to those feelings? So all of these are fantastic, and we could add probably a ton more information to this idea behind well-being. I, was looking through a number of different frameworks, if you will, as we're thinking about the different layers of achieving well-being. And it's so complicated because we have so many different layers. I saw some that had careers in here, and of course that's for teachers, but you can steal this one. In fact, that's what teachers do, is steal from, everything. You'll get this presentation, by the way, in an email. But I think what's really interesting, and I wanted to do this with you all, is to choose one dimension that you think maybe you could work on, or an area that's a strength of yours. But think about a time that this dimension was out of balance, because you might be financially doing pretty well, but socially not, or physically not doing very well, but emotionally feeling good. So again, do you have to have all of these 6 dimensions of wellness? I want you to pick one right now. And what did you do to move from out of balance to health? And you guys have brought up a couple of ideas, and I wanted to give this one to you because I hope that you think about using this with students. And maybe this requires, in the younger grades, for you to really talk about, what does it mean to be in balance? What does it mean what are these dimensions? Great chance to talk a little bit about vocabulary. But I love this. You guys are sharing some really good information. Helping mentees. I love it. You have some teachers. Help them, 4 of them get through the IRB process. I need to call on you, Dr. Hackney. That is a struggle, right? It's real. And celebrating them, because I'm going through it right now, but helping them through that to become, we're all learners constantly. So that's fantastic. Working with 1 grade level and teaching SEL and health standards, the same as whenever you're teaching curriculum, and the crossover happens, but the pedagogy and the way we learn is the same, no matter what content area we're talking about, right? So I hope you had a chance to think about the time that you were out of balance. And I just think about physical. A lot of times we're out of balance, whether it's what we're eating or what we're working out with, and what support helped you move through to health. For me, it's developing a plan. And again, whether it's getting up at 5 in the morning and just, working out a little bit, or, planning my meals the day before and making sure that everything has healthy, choices in it. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And a lot of times each one of these requires that we go back to a plan. So as we talk about goal setting and planning, I wanted to give you a model that has kind of driven some of the work that I'm doing. This is based on some work that was done in 2011. The PERMA model is really strongly rooted in promoting happiness. And if you guys follow Positive Psychology or any of those other publications, they present this in a way that we're looking at 5 tenets, where we've got, a core element of happiness, and certainly how it leads to well-being. And I liked how this laid out, because Thrively really does a nice job. I came to find Thrively about 4 years ago as a teacher, and having worked here for 3 years, I'm really noticing in the school districts I support that we've got positive emotion lessons, we've got engagement lessons. These are there for resources, not only for our students and their resources that you can use in the classroom to prepare to learn the content that you're headed into. A lot of these are just 5 minutes long, but also thinking about, if you see that people are maybe having some issues with engagement, or maybe we haven't celebrated accomplishments, that we can go back to some strategies that we have here in Thrively to help support the work that you're doing. So let me kind of get into, and this, again, you'll get this, but I love the PERMA model, because if we think about positive emotions. Okay. Lessons such as, and I'm just giving you one example from each one of these, but all you have to do inside of Thrively is go to lessons and type in the prompt, what are you looking for? I typed in emotions and found a lesson that I really liked about how emotions in our brain work. For this one, it's an elementary school lesson, and I can accurately describe my emotions and needs. So this goes back to that thing, student comes into class and has anxiety. Let's go back and re-identify what our feelings are. And this can support students' self-awareness and kind of identifying the emotion they're going through. But very quickly, by just clicking on this gear function, which I'm not in the program right now, but click on the gear function and send it out to your kids. Let's check on our emotions real quickly. Now, I know it says 25 minutes on this lesson, but maybe you just do the first exercise, and then you do the second exercise the next day, because it always opens back up. So you can assign these lessons to just one student for a more personalized experience, or to your whole class if you feel like you need to do that layer. And moving into engagement, and what a huge opportunity. Again, we've got a lesson called Find Your True North. But I think most importantly, I wanted to put this out in front of that, is that we have an assessment in Thrively as well. And this does tie into well-being, because we know that there's got to be some relevance to it and some joy, is have them take the RIASEC assessment. This is an assessment that helps them identify pathways and career opportunities that they might be interested in. And it gives you information. Okay, I've got a student in front of me who's artistic and investigative. What does that mean? What are some careers or interests that they have? And, really be intentional as you're, doing your literacy block or your math block, or teaching whatever you're teaching. Bring this in. Hey, those of you who are artistic, let's get you involved in the geometry part of it. And let's talk about how you can use this, in different aspects that you're interested in. But it does start with that data assessment piece, and then really identifying how they can explore their interests so that they're grounding themselves in why they're here for learning. Again, autonomy, right? We've had to pivot since COVID. So let's bring that autonomy back a little bit too. And I'm sorry, I'm not watching the webinar chat right now, but it does look like a lot of you guys are sharing some good ideas with each other. So please keep sharing out. How do you currently build relationships in the classroom now? And I think, that is the grounding point. And in the PERMA model, obviously, I wish it was like, in the beginning, but awareness of what positive relationships can do for your students. We know that one adult, right? It takes one adult to make a difference in the life of a child. But I also think it comes back to them choosing strong friendships, them choosing to partner up with certain people. So I'm going to play this. Let me make it a little bit bigger for those of you. Just want to check too to make sure, can you hear it? Please, anybody tell me if you cannot. Okay. No, you cannot hear it. And I checked this before too. And it worked before. Okay, maybe it's because of my headphones. Let me take my headphones out real quick. Can you hear it now?
We need to create learning environments which allow for strong long-term relationships for children to become attached to school and to the adults and other children in it.
When children have experiences of closeness and consistency and trust, oxytocin is released. Oxytocin has many, many positive effects on the development of the brain. So when we think about a relationship, we're not just talking about being nice to a child. We're talking about a child having an experience of attunement and trust strong enough to release the hormone oxytocin.
Good morning, Ariana. How you doing today? The purpose of the morning greeting is to connect with them and to just make sure that I'm seeing them as humans. Like I'm making that relationship with them, making that bond.
I prioritize relationship building because getting to know them is the best part of the job.
When I come in the morning, we usually talk about things that are happening in our community.
We're trying to build caring and respect.
The teacher is trying to understand who I am and my values as a person.
when I have a free 45 minutes or an hour, I think to myself, I could sit down and catch up on grading, or I could go and make connections, whether it's a smile or a joke or a reminder. It validates their presence in the building.
Rock it out in the art room. It starts from so much honesty and transparency with kids. It's really easy to strive to be this like idealized, always ready to go elementary school teacher. And that's not real and that's not human. When people start talking about other things while I'm still giving directions, it feels frustrating for me and I have to take a breath. My students connect most with me when they see that I also struggle and I also have challenges. It takes a lot of vulnerability on my part.
When that student knows that you care about them, when they know that you're a human, their academic performance in your classes can be better.
If I'm comfortable around them, then I'm more confident around them and it's easier to ask questions and things like that.
So when you're looking at this graph, what is it that you think happened?
Some teachers I don't always get along with the best. So then sometimes I'm like, I can't do it. So I'm just not gonna do it. But when I like the teacher, I want to do their work. I'll be like, I can learn this.
You all have done outstanding work.
Emotion and learning are completely connected. If you're in a positive emotional space, if you feel good about yourself, your teacher, that actually opens up the opportunity for more learning.
Good to see.
All right. My head done. So, I mean, I think we can see the power. If you guys wouldn't mind in the chat, just what was something you saw, something that was resonated with you, something that felt really good about that video. Because I think as we think about building these trusting relationships, you all are doing it. Certainly that's part of the joy of being a teacher. But how do we also create that for our environment so that everybody is feeling that as well? Pull the chat up for a second. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, seeing them. Absolutely. Teacher makes time to build a relationship. I love that she said, you know, I could grade or I could do this. What is the most high impact that you're creating for the situation? And so lessons, and we have to, you know, unfortunately, I have to say this, we have to create those opportunities for them to learn how to speak in a kind way, how to acknowledge other people. Sometimes we even have to do that with the adults in our building, right? And so, you know, being accountable. And I think back to times when maybe you were in the teacher's lounge and somebody was talking negatively. How do we have brave conversations to say, you know, hey, is that making us happier and our job better? So really kind of getting to the grounding point of making that happen. Great. I really love what you guys are saying in the chat. So I hope you're sharing that and reading out, but making ourselves vulnerable. You know, we don't have to know it all. And I hope administrators who are on here too, like I've heard this from teachers across the country when their administration is vulnerable, they feel like they can go ahead and fail forward. And we know we want them to do that first attempt in learning. So we do have great lessons in here to build those trusting relationships. These can be done as PDs as well for those of you that are leading that work. So yes, and different student perspectives matter. I love what you guys are saying. Oops, I got to jump ahead. So oh my gosh, you guys are great. This has been probably one of the most active chats I've been on in a while. So thank you so much. It invigorates me because I feel like sometimes I'm just talking to myself and relationships matter, right? But this whole piece of meaning, and I was struggling with this part with the PERMA model and really came back to this place of why am I here? Why am I at school? You know, and when we show up with our strengths and we're celebrated for our strengths, and this, again, it's all humans, right? You have a safe space to go, I want to try a risk, or I want to explore this without somebody telling you no. Again, it starts with those strength assessments. We have an excellent playlist, which I should have put right in here, called the 23 Strengths playlist. And after students take this assessment, they're able to dive into their strength of compassion. What does it mean? And how do I use compassion to meet my goals? And, you know, certainly I think administrators could take a tune out of that too, is, you know, who are the staff members in your building and how do you build leadership and how do you build that, that capacity throughout the building? we always know accomplishments. It feels good when we accomplish things. It feels good when we're recognized. We have to figure out how to recognize people first. But I love that even the strength assessment, when you first pop it up, just says, hey, you are amazing with an analytical mind and nice flexibility. And then it goes on to tell you all these wonderful positive things about yourself. And for those of you who have met me before and know me, tell the story about a little boy who, after he took the strength assessment, was crying. And I went over, of course, mortified and thinking something had happened. And he looked up at me with his big brown eyes. He said, Miss Simonson, look at all the things I'm good at. And for me, that was a breaking moment where I said, you know what, this needs to be a priority of mine. We're celebrating who these people are, who these kids are. But we also, you'll see I put inquiring and analyzing, we set goals with them, whether they're academic or otherwise. And so inquiring and analyzing can go across the content areas. In tier 1 instruction, if you're focusing on inquiry, we can do that across every subject area. And then they can start to see how they celebrate that they are researchers and they are inquiring and asking questions and they're analyzing data. And if, again, we could get on board with the, district and school goals, it all gets in alignment. What Thrively does, and this goes back to the question, how do we know? How do we know when a student comes in if they're ready to learn? And so they're not going to walk in and announce to everybody, hey, I have anxiety. Even if you did the whole what I wish my teacher knew and you wrote it on a Post-it note, they may or may not take that opportunity. But if you intentionally take time to say, hey, open up Thrively, click on the well-being, the little heart, go click on the well-being index, and just take 60 seconds and tell us how you're feeling and functioning. Okay, these are broken up into how I'm feeling. So how do others, how do I feel around others? Am I being accepted for who I am? Things like that, that really kind of elevate their voice, but then also how they're functioning. Going back to, am I hungry? Am I tired? Are there physical things that are happening with me that I need a trusted adult to know about? And then certainly this also gives an opportunity. We hear all the time that, a teacher may know something about a student, but then what's the process in my school for making sure that they get support beyond just the tier 1? So you can share this data with counselors. Counselors can go in and monitor certain groups of students that maybe they're concerned about. And of course, we need to progress monitor. So, are our trend lines going up? Based on an intervention we might be doing, or based on some data points that we're interested in looking at. Yes, thank you, Madhavi, for putting that in there. We are getting close to our end time, and I'm going to share with you a couple more things here, but we do have a link in here if you wouldn't mind sharing some information about what you've learned today. So the Wellbeing Index is a 60-second check-in. Every day you can do this with your staff and your students. This impacts tier 1 instruction because we know that, number one, just by asking them to click on the Wellbeing Index, we're asking them how they're feeling and functioning. We care. We're recognizing everybody has strengths by doing the strength assessment. All students thrive on this positive emotional relationship. We can do it through feedback, through journal reflections, or just those high fives and those things that you saw in the hallway. And as we ignite our learning through interest and passions, we can use the RIASEC assessment to help guide our tier 1 instruction to connect those interests. When we overcome challenges, let's celebrate and teach them how to use mindfulness and breathing exercises. But also for you teachers out there, making sure your awareness of the students' needs for access to the learning, access to building friendships, access to all of the supports that they have. And you can't do it alone. So having all eyes on the platform through Thrively really helps you. So notice here, I can jump in and go to Class Insights and check on the well-being or anything else, the hope of our students. And if I'm a counselor or an administrator, I can quickly jump in and see and check in on a particular student, or see, oh my gosh, look, today, we had a ton of kids who were feeling really good, and celebrating that. And students also get a report showing how they're feeling and functioning. I had a 5th grader say to me, it's interesting, when I don't sleep very well, I tend to be grumpier and my well-being goes down. So, their parents could have said you need sleep, but if they start to see trends, and they're doing data analysis, which is great. So this Wellbeing Index is available to everybody who has a pro account. As you are looking at getting started, if you're not already started with Thrively, very simply just create an educator account, go to thrively.com, join as an educator, and join through your email. and then log in through this, this portal here. If you need any more information about Thrively, I know this is a quick session, giving you a lot of information, but please reach out to support@thrively.com or fill out that, that link that was put in the chat, and we will be happy to spend more time kind of assessing the needs of your particular environments, making sure that we build an implementation plan with you and your administrators to make sure that we really have some resources that are defined for you. So again, sorry, it's so quick. I know we're right at the top of the hour. Any questions that you have? I know that we had 2 questions. I want to make sure that and I did say, teachers, you can also take the well-being index. Administrators can see how you're feeling. This is so important. My dissertation is all around new teacher retention, and hey, guys, we need to stay in this profession and make it great. And yeah, Dr. Heckney, right? You teach high school 6 courses. Oh, thank you. Program is paid forever for your access. That's great. If you need more information, though, please reach out to support@thrively.com. You'll either get me or one of the other implementation specialists who work really closely with districts and making sure that you get all the information you need. So I am happy to stay on for a couple minutes. If anybody has, yes, you will get a recording, Nicole. Thanks for that question. You will get a recording. You will also get the access to this presentation if you want to share it out with anybody. And certainly if there's anything else you need, want a trial just to see if it's something that you want, put that in our form that we shared with you. And you all, I just can't say enough about the profession that we're in. I had my best friend called me today and said, hey, my daughter wants to go into teaching and she's questioning it. And I said, right, without any qualms, this is the best profession to ever be in. Let's raise our professional experiences and let everybody know how amazing we all are. We are impacting the lives of children every day. And I'm so proud to be a part of this cohort and this movement that we're all in. So go be strong, go out there and celebrate your strengths, and check in on each other every once in a while too. And let's give each other some great feedback. So again, thanks for joining me this afternoon. This is Jeanette Simonson, and I'm really excited to connect with you guys again. 2 weeks from now, we're going to be doing another webinar, and of course online we can be reached. So have a delightful day. It doesn't look like we have any other questions. Hopefully I answered. I think I did. Yeah. So have a great one. Thanks, Alyssa. You too. All right. Everybody have a great evening, afternoon, whatever it is in your neck of the woods, and we'll see you soon.